right.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Well, we are making our way through Sri Nisargadatta Maharaja's book, I Am That. We're at the end of chapter 51, and we've he's talking about, oh gosh, well, lots of different things. He wants to know, can I think I am God? Right? And then Maharaj says, no, you don't want to identify yourself with an idea of any kind, right? Because we only have an idea of God. And so if you don't know what God is and you say, I am God, that who knows what that's going to come out as for you, um, because you don't know who I is either. So you could get yourself in quite a pickle, not knowing who the I is and not knowing what God is, and then repeating again and again, I am God. You could get into all kinds of trouble with that. So he says, don't identify yourself with an idea, right? And then he says, patience, be patient with yourself. And this is a big teaching. Holy Mother said that one of the most important aspects of spiritual life is forbearance, right? And in our practice, that's forbearance is really surrender, you know. And so just to sit and be patient with where you're at. Don't try to get anywhere else. Be where you're at and try to see the truth of where you're at. Don't try to redefine your atness, right? And so he says, my thoughts won't let me. My thoughts are driving me. And Maharaj says, well, don't pay any attention. Don't fight them, right? This non-resistance is there. Let the thoughts come and go. Even the bad ones. If a thought of lust comes through the mind, if you react to it, then it becomes a thing, right? If you just let it come, it'll go. If you just let it arise, it will fall. And so to just not be interested, that's part of disinterested thinking right there as well. It's like not to be concerned with the contents of your mind. If good thoughts and bad thoughts are going through, don't judge them. Just let them go through. They're just thoughts. They don't do anything until you identify with them. You see, this is a very interesting. I'm still experimenting with this thing. I'm not sure I'm ready to teach this as the truth yet, but uh, it's come. I'm getting suspicious that when Ramakrishna says that we're like a tethered goat with our freedom of will, free will, that we're basically tied to a post, and anything that's within the 10 feet of that rope, we have free will on. But anything beyond that 10 feet we don't have free will on, like where you're born and whether your family's rich or not and what country you're born in. Those are the things you can't decide for yourself. But anything within that 10 feet. But then I was thinking, I think that if we're not the doer, right? I mean, Ramakrishna throws us into a puzzle because he says that you're not the doer, and then he says you've got 10 feet of rope within which you have free will. Well, now we've got a problem, right? A free will to do what for 10 feet of rope. So I've really been trying to figure out this pickle. Like, how can he tell me at the same time that I'm not the doer and that then I have 10 feet worth of rope within which I have free will? And so I was trying to think, well, what is that free will that would not require doership? And I can't really figure it out, but what I'm coming up with is that it does seem to be the case that you can place your attention on what you choose to place your attention on. And whatever you place your attention on comes to life. You imbue it with your Satchitananda, and as thoughts, they take on a life. When you attach to a thought, you imbue it with your own Satchitananda, right? And that thought comes to life. It becomes a thought that can argue with you, a thought that can support itself, a thought that becomes its own spun off sub character in your mind. That's what attachment does. And so I was wondering if maybe our free will is really just that level. Like the only thing that we can actually do is decide where our attention rests, what thought our attention touches, identifies with, and that determines the rest of everything, actually. So I don't know. There's an interesting idea. See what you get with it. Watch inside, because I've been trying to come up with a practice that's non-doership. Right. That's a couple of my lectures on Sunday lectures have been about that, trying to figure out how do we practice in a world where we are not the doer, and what kind of attitude do we have when we sit to do our practice, right? And so he's going to deal with that some more this morning. So he's talking about his thoughts not letting him. And Maharaj says, pay no attention, don't fight them. Just do nothing about them. Let them be, whatever they are. Your very fighting gives them life. That's the point. If you pay attention to them, if you resist or embrace them, they take on Satchitananda. They take on life. Do you guys get does that make sense when I say they take on Satchitananda? They actually, because there's this other idea, which I've shared this one. Won't be long before you guys call someone to cart me off. But this other idea that I keep playing with is that at night when we go into a dream, we can only choose one character as a point of reference in that dream, right? Because the idea is that our thinking is not happening up here, right? If this world is consciousness, our thinking isn't happening up here. Our thinking is like thinking in a dream, right? In a dream, the thoughts in your character in the dream are not in the character's head, because the character, after all, is in your head. So his thinking can't be happening in his head. And if this state is like the dream state, then our thinking is also not taking place in here, because we're part of universal mind, right? Everything is mind. And so, if everything is mind, then with our ego, we literally boundary off a segment of universal mind that we call me and mine. And that segment, that cut off segment of universal mind becomes our individual mind. And this is why realization, as you abandon the boundaries of egoism, as you get rid of your lower self, then you have access to general mind, to universal mind. And that's where all of the gifts of Raja Yoga, all the siddhis come in, and all of that. So, in thinking about those things, I was thinking maybe the difference with our dream versus the dream of the divine is that when God dreams, he can become all the characters in his dream, that he's not limited to a single point of reference like you and I are. And so he dreams the world that we're living in, right? And that he has become all of us, and that basically each one of us is a thought in the universal mind, and that we are imbued with God's Satchit Ananda because he attaches to us, his love for us, right? His concern for us. And why would he be concerned for us and attached to us? Because each one of us is a story of what love looks like when it's pushed through the limitations and restrictions of this particular person. And so God is running this universal experience of all the myriad of possible ways that love can be expressed through different sets of limitations and restrictions. And so, does that make sense? Does anybody do you follow that thinking? No? Well,
Yes.
oh, okay. Yeah. And so,
Swamiji,
yes,
where does subconscious come in then?
subconscious. Oh, that's subconscious is just old attachments you haven't brushed off in a while. And they just sink deeper to the bottom of the toy box. And eventually you forget that they're there. And then one day you're digging deep and you come up with an old samskara. Yeah, I think that's what I would say. your subconscious is the old stuff that hasn't stayed in relevant mind has been relegated to the bottom of the bucket and just sits there because you don't want to throw it out, but you don't want to do anything with it either. Right? So pay no attention, don't fight them, just do nothing about them. Let them be, whatever they are. Your very fighting gives them life. Just disregard. Look through. Right? And this looking through, this is part of the secret of seeing God in everything. Right? Ramakrishna says that, well, Vivekananda said it actually, that when you sit in front of the image in the shrine, don't look at the image and stop there. Look through the image to the infinite behind it. And he said that leads to moksha, that leads to freedom. He says if you look at the image and stop at the image, that's how you get to a loka. Right? If you develop your relationship with the image itself, that will take you to a loka, to a heaven where you get to be in the company of your chosen ideal. But if you look through the image to the infinite beyond it, to the God through it, that leads to moksha, to freedom. And so this seeing God in everything happens in that way. We look through our thoughts, right? We look through our thoughts at the infinite mind beyond them. We don't stop and become localized in our thinking. We always keep our mind soaring. That's one of the specialties of Vivekananda. When you read Vivekananda, after a while you understand that he never stops seeing the whole. He always keeps the big picture in his mind, even when he's talking about particulars. And that's what makes him such a visionary, is that he never gets caught. He's always seeing the big picture, always keeping things there. And so this is to try and do that, just cease being interested. It is disinterestedness that liberates. Don't hold on. That is all. The world is made of rings. The hooks are all yours. Make straight your hooks and nothing can hold you. Give up your addictions. There is nothing else to give up, right? Your addictions, all those things that you think are you, that define you, like a cup of coffee with 2 teaspoons of sugar instead of 1. Let go. Stop holding on. So he says, stop your routine of acquisitiveness, your habit of looking for results, and the freedom of the universe is yours. Be effortless. And then our questioner says, but life is effort. There are so many things to do. Maharaj says, what needs doing, do it. Don't resist it. Your balance must be dynamic, based on doing just the right thing from moment to moment. Don't be a child unwilling to grow up. Stereotyped gestures and postures will not help you. Rely entirely on your clarity of thought, your purity of motive, and integrity of action. You cannot possibly go wrong. Go beyond and leave all behind. What he's telling us here, this is very, very powerful. And it is basically, don't leave your center, right? Don't leave your center. The reason that we fall into lust is because lust weaves a story that kind of lifts us out of our secure standing as self, right? And gives us a charming story, an intoxicating story about body and mind. And we start listening to that story and we become interested in that story and we start pursuing that story, right? But if from the very beginning of it, you maintained your awareness of presence, if we want to talk in terms of the bhakti or the bhakta, that if you stay in the presence of God, nothing bad's going to happen. It's only when you ignore God, when you let ignorance in, you're ignoring the presence, where you push that presence out of your mind. That's when the mischief happens, right? And we know that. That's why we have to disguise it, right? That's why we can't blatantly just do wrong things. Because we need to look like we're trying to do the right thing, right? And so all of that comes into play. So he says, rely entirely on your clarity of thought, right? When you're sitting there, I don't know, let me think of something that we could talk about, that we could do this. Lust is not a good one. Okay. Um, yeah, well, let's say, no, let's say like drinking. Let's go with drinking. It's like the one of the things that was beautiful about um, Girish Ghosh is that when he was drunk, where did he choose to go? He chose to go to Ramakrishna, to his clarity of thinking, right? He chose to go there, and there's something beautiful about that, and I think that that's what Ramakrishna saw when he looked at him and said that this man's the drinking is not a big deal for this man because when he's drunk, he's seeking me out. All right. It's like, so he told him when Girish asked him, do I have to give up my drinking? Ramakrishna said, no. He said, don't worry about that. It's only external. The mother will remove that when she's ready. And I thought that is what happened. You see, when Ramakrishna told Girish that, he allowed Girish then to do what Maharaj is telling us right here, right? Rely on your clarity of thought. Don't make your drinking an issue. Don't make it about whether you should or you shouldn't. Just observe it happening. That observance, if you can stay neutral in it and just observe the whole process, that's the light of Satchitananda. That's the light of awareness. And that light will untie the knots of Maya. So if you can stay sober, stay with your clarity of thought, he says, rely entirely on your clarity of thought, your purity of motive, right? So be discerning, turn on that discerning light in there. Why am I doing this? Right? And ask yourself and stay close to your purity of motive and integrity of action. Think, okay, I'm in the presence of mother. If I do this particular act, if I have this big glass of wine, right, is this in integrity with the thought of mother, right? Can I actually stay in clarity when I'm actually consciously trying to become unclear by becoming drunk or intoxicated, right? And so if you hold yourself in a state of disinterest, then your vices cannot pull you out of your center for you to make a wrong move. You see, but if you get concerned about the contents of your mind, if you think they are the contents of your mind, right, and the bad thought comes up, and you're like, oh, don't think the bad thought, well, then you're entering into that white elephant syndrome, right? Every thought that you have about the things you're not supposed to be doing is a thought about things you're not supposed to be doing. Though that is going to be the trap for you. You're not able to move past them because you've made them something that you give your attention to, right? And so it's going to cause problems. So what he's saying here is don't care. Let the good thought arise in the mind, let it go. Let the bad thought arise in the mind, let it go. Let any thought arise in the mind and let it go. And if you just simply let each thought go, then you have no samskaras. You have no attachments, right? No thought in your mind identifies you, and you're free in that state, right? So life is effort. There are so many things to do. And he says, what needs doing, do it. Whatever is in front of you, do it. Life comes at you one moment at a time. Be present in it and do what it's offering and do it as worship, right? And that's it. Just that. Don't resist. Don't like it or not like it. Don't try and get it finished. Don't try and make it the best you've ever done. Just be fully focused, fully present. Do what's in front of you. Do it as an offering and pick up the next thing. Don't resist. Your balance must be dynamic, right? So you're constantly being aware. You're constantly discerning. based on doing just the right thing from moment to moment. Don't be a child unwilling to grow up, right? What does that mean? Those thoughts that you're attached to, don't be a child and continue to hold on to them. Let them go, right? They don't define you. Let them go. Stereotype gestures and postures will not help you, right? So that's all this rote practice. All of your spiritual practice, if you're not present in it, what good is it? Right? If you're not present in your spiritual practice, then it's just delusion, isn't it? Right? And so these stereotyped starts where we just sort of pick up our beads and start doing our thing, and we're only halfway there, and then ding, the time's up, we're done, we move on. Right? No, he's saying the game is not that. The game is to stay present always. Stay present. Don't get caught in any stories. Don't get caught in any narrative of thinking. Right? Rely entirely on your clarity of thought, your purity of motive, and your integrity of action. You cannot possibly go wrong. Well, see, there you are. It's a guarantee. Go beyond and leave everything behind. The questioner, but can anything be left for good? Right? Am I going to be able to not pick that thing up again? Maharaj, you want something like round-the-clock ecstasy. Ecstasies come and go, necessarily, for the human brain cannot stand the tension for a long time. A prolonged ecstasy will burn out your brain, unless it is extremely pure and subtle. In nature, nothing is at a standstill. Everything pulsates, appears and disappears. Heart, breath, digestion, sleep, waking, birth and death. Everything comes and goes in waves. Rhythm, periodicity, periodicity. Harmonious alternation of extremes is the rule. No use rebelling against the very pattern of life. If you seek the immutable, go beyond experience. When I say remember I am all the time, I mean come back to it repeatedly. It's the I am that keeps you from attaching all the attributes, right? You define yourself simply by isness, by being, and you keep being aware of your own awareness. If you're doing the Jnana Yoga way, you become aware of awareness. If you're doing it the devotee way, you're remaining in God. You're remaining aware of the presence of your beloved, right? All the time. And you stay in that state and you go beyond experience, meaning what is experience? Experience is when you get caught up in a story and you experience a narrative, right? That's when you've been pulled out of your center and you're actually doing something now. You see yourself as doing something, right? And so you return to the I am when that begins to happen. That's how you stay in your center. I am, I am, I am. And let no other definitions attach to that, right? When I say remember I am all the time, I mean come back to it repeatedly. No particular thought can be mind's natural state, only silence, right? So silence is the only thing you can identify with in mind. You can say, I am silent, right? And that will help you. That can help you, identifying with the silent. And then you know that if you are the silent, that's the reason that you can see all of the noise. And so the noise of the mind doesn't become your problem. You can see it. And simply being aware of it without being attached to fixing it will be all that's necessary for that to begin to calm down. It's your interest in mind. It's your interest in me and mine, in the mind, that causes your mind to be noisy. Me and mine is the only thing that causes waves, causes thinking. If there's no me and mine, if there's no particularity, there's no thinking, right? And what do you experience if there's no thinking? That's the peace that passes understanding. That's the peace that passes understanding, right? No particular thought can be mind's natural state, only silence. Not the idea of silence, but silence itself. When the mind is in its natural state, it reverts to silence spontaneously after every experience, or rather, every experience happens against the background of silence. Okay, so this is saying that if you identify with silence, then basically all the noise in your life indicates that silence. Your mind is drawn its attention to silence because it's the silence that allows you to see the noise. It's the silence that allows you to see the disturbance, right? I talked about this. I learned this actually doing yoga with Sushil in DC. You know, that one exercise he had us do where he had to just sit here and just do this like 400 times. It was horrible torture, right? And I was sitting there doing that and just thinking that fatigue. Oh God, that horrible fatigue that just starts taking over your limbs when you're sitting there just doing this 300 or 400 times, right? And I was just really, my arms were wanting to fall down. And I was like, okay, bring them up. Come on, come on, come on. And at some point, I thought, my arms are the only thing that's tired. My arms is where all my suffering is. Why am I putting my center of attention in my arms? Why not let the movement of my arms remind me that the rest of me is not moving? Right? And that took my attention off of the fatigue and the feeling in the arm, and it gave me a new energy. It's it's really amazing how well it worked, right? And I started doing the other time I started doing working on that same thing when I used to run up and down the steps for exercise. San Francisco has some hills that are so big that the sidewalks are steps. And so down about 2 blocks from the temple, there was one of those for 3 blocks. There were stairs, and I used to go run up and down those for exercise. And well, run is an overstatement. More like crawling on all fours, begging God to get it over with. But so climbing up and down those stairs. But then one day I was doing it, and I was like, "Oh my God, I've still got 3 rounds to go." And when you start thinking like that, oh boy, the exertion becomes too much. You can't keep it going, right? And so then I suddenly thought about the body as a chariot. I'm riding this thing. I'm not making this thing do its thing. It's doing its own thing. I'm riding it. And so I tried to maintain that perspective of riding my body up and down the stairs rather than walking up and down the stairs, right? I tried to abstract myself from the work of the body and just become the passenger in the body that's going up and down stairs. And again, if you just try it, you will be amazed at how powerful that is. How how powerful it is your identity, you see that your identity really you can abstract and pull out of anything, anytime, and be unaffected by it. And that's what he's teaching us here, right? Not the idea of silence, but silence itself. When the mind is in its natural state, it reverts to silence spontaneously after every experience, or rather, every experience happens against the background of silence. Now, what you have learned here becomes the seed. You may forget it, apparently, but it will live and in due season sprout and grow and bring forth flowers and fruits. All will happen by itself. You need not do anything, only don't prevent it. Right? This is why you're not the doer, because everything will happen of its own accord. All you need is patience, right? And what is patience? Keeping yourself aloof, not getting caught up in any of the particulars. That's patience. Not not wanting to take charge. That's patience. Just be, and just be present. Don't get caught up in all the feelings of the body and mind as it puts one idea after another in front of you. Chapter 52. Being happy, making happy, is the rhythm of life. Questioner. I came from Europe a few months ago on one of my periodical visits to my guru near Calcutta. Now I'm on my way back home. I was invited by a friend to meet you, and I'm glad that I came. Maharaj, what did you learn from your guru, and what practice did you follow? Questioner, he is a venerable old man of about 80. Philosophically, he is a Vedantin, and the practice he teaches has much to do with the rousing the unconscious energies of the mind and bringing in the hidden obstacles and blockages into the conscious. My personal sadhana was related to my peculiar problem of early infancy and childhood. My mother could not give me the feeling of being secure and loved, so important to the child's normal development. She was a woman not fit to be a mother, ridden with anxieties and neuroses, unsure of herself. She felt me to be a responsibility and a burden beyond her capacity to bear. She never wanted me to be born. Oof, this boy's got a lot of stories here. She did not want me to grow and to develop. She wanted me back in her womb, unborn, non-existent. Any movement of life in me she resisted. Any attempt to go beyond the narrow circle of her habitual existence, she fought fiercely. As a child, I was both sensitive and affectionate. I craved for love above everything else. We're going to have to be patient here because he goes on for forever here. I craved for the love above everything else, and love, the simple instinct love of a mother for her child, was denied me. The child's search for its mother became the leading motive of my life, and I never grew out of it. A happy child, a happy childhood, became an obsession with me. Pregnancy, birth, infancy interested me passionately. I became an obstetrician of some renown and contributed to the development of the method of painless childbirth. A happy child of a happy mother, that was my ideal all my life. But my mother was always there, unhappy herself, unwilling and incapable to see me happy. It manifested itself in strange ways. Whenever I was unwell, she felt better, and when I was in good shape, she was down again, cursing herself and me too, as if she never forgave me my crime of having been born. She made me feel guilty of being alive. You live because you hate me. If you love me, die, was her constant, though silent message. Wow. And so I spent my life being offered death instead of love, imprisoned as I was in my mother, the perennial infant. I could not develop a meaningful relation with a woman. The image of the mother would stand between, unforgiving, unforgiven. I sought solace in my work and found much, but I could not move from the pit of infancy. Finally, I turned to spiritual search, and I am on this line steadily for many years. But in a way, it is the same old search for mother's love. Call it God or Atman or supreme reality. Basically, I want to love and be loved. Unfortunately, the so-called religious people are against life and all for the mind. When faced with life's needs and urges, they begin classifying, abstracting, and conceptualizing, and then make the classification more important than life itself. They ask to concentrate on and impersonate a concept. Instead of the spontaneous integration through love, they recommend a deliberate and laborious concentration on a formula. Whether it is God or Atman, the me or the other, it comes to the same. Something to think about, not somebody to love. It is not theories and systems I need. There are many equally attractive or plausible. I need a stirring of the heart, a renewal of life, and not a new way of thinking. There are no new ways of thinking, but feeling can be ever fresh. When I love somebody, I meditate on them spontaneously and powerfully, with warmth and vigor, which my mind cannot command. Words are good for shaping feelings. Words without feelings are like clothes with no body inside, cold and limp. This mother of mine, she drained me of all my feelings. All my sources have run dry. Can I find here the richness and abundance of emotions which I needed in such ample measure as a child? Questioner. He's going to get right to the chase. Where is your childhood now? And what is your future? Questioner. Well, I was born, I've grown, I shall die. Maharaj, you mean your body, of course, and your mind. I'm not talking of your physiology and your psychology. They are a part of nature and are governed by nature's laws. I'm talking about your search for love. Does it have had it a beginning? Will it have an end? Questioner. Oh, I really can't say. It is there from the earliest to the last moment of my life, this yearning for love. How constant and how hopeless. Maharaj, in your search for love, what exactly are you searching for? Questioner, simply this, to love and be loved. Maharaj, you mean a woman? Questioner, not necessarily. A friend, a teacher, a guide, as long as the feeling is bright and clear. Of course, a woman is the usual answer, but it need not be the only one. Maharaj, of the two, what would you prefer? To love or to be loved? Well, I would rather have both, but I can see that to love is greater and nobler and deeper. To be loved is sweet, but it does not make one grow. Maharaj, can you love on your own, or must you be made to love? Questioner, one must meet somebody lovable, of course. My mother was not only not loving, she was also not lovable. Maharaj, what makes a person lovable? Is it not being loved? First you love, and then you look for reasons. Questioner, it can be the other way around. You love what makes you happy. Maharaj, but what makes you happy? Question, well, there is no rule about it. The entire subject is highly individual and unpredictable. Maharaj, right. Whichever way you put it, unless you love, there is no happiness. But does love make you always happy? Is not the association of love with happiness a rather early, infantile stage? When the beloved suffers, don't you suffer too? And do you cease to love because you suffer? Must love and happiness come and go together? Is love merely the expectation of pleasure? Questioner, of course not. There can be much suffering in love. Well, Maharaj, well then what is love? Is it not a state of being rather than a state of mind? Must you know that you love in order to love? Did you not love your mother unknowingly? Your craving for her love, for an opportunity to love her, is it not the movement of love? Is not love as much a part of you as consciousness of being? You sought the love of your mother because you loved her. But she would not let me. Maharaj, she could not stop you. Questioner, then why was I unhappy all my life? Maharaj, because you did not go down to the very roots of your being. It is your complete ignorance of yourself that covered up your love and happiness and made you seek for what you had never lost. Love is will, the will to share your happiness with all. Being happy, making happy, this is the rhythm of love. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. Do you see what he's trying to do there, though? He's trying to remove the story, right? That guy's story went on for a whole page and a half there of this whole thing that he's worked out with his mother. But this is that whole point of don't let the not here, not now infect your here and now, right? So to be in the moment is to be in the presence of God. To be in the moment purely is to have no thought, because the moment has no room for thought, right? There's no past and there's no future in the moment. Thought requires both of those. And so to be absolutely present in the moment, absolutely aware, removes all the layers of narrative that you're experiencing. And then your nature, which is to love, spontaneously arises. When there is no narrative of mind that is changing the way it does that, right? When you've let go of all of the levels of thinking and just come down to the moment, Satchitananda expresses. It doesn't need a story. It doesn't need a narrative. You are made of love. You are made of wisdom. You are made of being. These are not things that you need to go and find. They're not things you need to go and search for. They are things you need to accept about yourself. You need to accept that you're loving and that you are loved, and to cease looking for it. Because to look for something, you have to assume you don't have it. And if you assume you don't have it, you will never enjoy it. All right. And so again, our practice is a one of surrender, accepting the fact that you are perfect. In the moment when there's no narrative, you are, in fact, perfect. To be non-perfect or more perfect would be narrative. Just be. Right? So just remove these layers and layers and layers and layers of story and assume that you are Satchitananda, that you are all the love that you need, that you are all the wisdom that you need, right? And enjoy the gift of grace. And if your mind wants to argue, constantly bring it back to the feet of Mother. Constantly bring it back to the grace that is your practice, the grace that is your success, the grace that is your growth, right? All right. Chapter 53. Desires fulfilled breed more desires. Oof, boy, is that true. Questioner, I must confess, I came today in a rebellious mood. I got a raw deal at the airline office. When faced with such a situation, everything seems doubtful. Everything seems useless. Maharaj, this is a very useful mood. Doubting everything, refusing all, unwilling to learn through another. It is the fruit of your long sadhana. After all, one does not study forever. Questioner, well, enough of it. It took me nowhere. Maharaj, oh, don't say nowhere. It took you where you are. Now. Questioner, it is again the child and its tantrums. I have not moved an inch from where I was. Maharaj, you began as a child, and you will end as a child. Whatever you have acquired in the meantime, you must lose and start at the beginning. Right? Stop the narrative. That's all you can pick up in this world. I keep coming back to that. But do you understand? It's like where that thought comes from is that everything is a thought, right? When Ramakrishna says everything is mind, right? Then that would mean that everything that you see and experience is a thought in that mind. Every object is merely a thought of an object in the mind. It is not the object itself, right? We've talked about the fact that you cannot have a direct experience of this world. It's always an interpreted experience. That your mind, your body, takes things in through the senses, interprets it. The mind takes that information and creates a symbol for it, and that symbol is what you experience, right? So everything is a thought. And to have no thought is to be spontaneous. To have no thought is to have no karma, no attachments, no aversions, right? All of those things, attachments, aversions, thoughts, all of those things only happen when you emphasize the particular. I am something, right? But if you keep coming back to simple I am, there's no narrative. There's no specific. There's just isness. And in that isness is where you find yourself. In the inner silence of isness, that's when you know who you are. Not in words, because it can't be put in words. Not in thoughts, because it can't be placed in the mind. Right? It's an isness that is self-apparent to you. But it's only self-apparent when you stop the stories around it, the narratives that prevent you from seeing it. All narratives are egoism. And egoism is what has to be busted, what has to be given up. Right? You began as a child and you will end as a child. Whatever you have acquired in the meantime, you must lose and start at the beginning. Right? Start at the beginning because that's what you've always been. Right? But the child kicks when it's unhappy and denied anything. It kicks. Maharaj, well, let it kick. Just look at the kicking. And if you are too afraid of the society to kick convincingly, look at that too. I know it is a painful business, but there is no remedy except one. The search for remedies must cease. Right? And it's not so much the search for remedies that must cease, right? What's he really saying? It's this insistence that there's something wrong that needs to cease. This insistence that you're missing something that you have to go and get. In our case, the enlightenment, right? You have to stop assuming that you aren't what you are. Because if you are what you are, you're enlightened. That's all. There's nothing to be done, nothing to be added, nothing to be changed. You simply have to stop letting the narratives cover your vision of self, the silent self, the infinite self, the self with no particulars, right? The search for remedies must cease. If you are angry or in pain, separate yourself from anger and pain and watch them. Externalization is the first step to liberation. Step away and look. The physical events will go on happening, but by themselves they have no importance. It is the mind alone that matters. Whatever happens, you cannot kick and scream in an airline office or in a bank. Society does not allow it. If you do not like their ways or are not prepared to endure them, don't fly or carry money. Walk. And if you cannot walk, don't travel. If you deal with society, you must accept its ways, for its ways are your ways. Your needs and demands have created them. Your desires are so complex and contradictory. No wonder the society you create is also complex and contradictory. I do see, and I admit the outer chaos is merely a reflection of my own inner disharmony. But what is the remedy? Maharaj, don't seek remedies. Right? Do you see how he tells us he's just told this guy this at least 3 different ways? Do you see this is attachment? Right? This is why you and I have been going to Vedanta centers for decades, and we're still here. Right? Because we know the truth. You don't need another lecture. You don't need another class. You don't need another scripture. You need to accept the ones you've heard. And your meditation and your practice is that process of acceptance. Surrender to them. When they tell you that you are that, believe them. Don't sit there and wonder, oh, how do I make that true? It is true. Accept it. That's how. All right? In another place, Sri Nisargadatta says something quite lovely. Uh, Somebody asks him, they're like, you're enlightened and I'm not. What's the difference between us? You know, and he says, there's only one difference between us. And he says it's a very simple difference. He said, when my teacher told me that I was that, I believed him. You believed you had something else to do. Right? So this is that. Your practice is very simple. It can be stated in many ways. My favorite way to describe what practice really is you trying to accept an infinite grace. That's all. Your practice is you trying to accept infinite grace, trying to accept that there exists a love that has no condition. If you can believe that a love exists that has no condition, then your enlightenment will be experienceable here and now. Because all that you have to do is encapsulated in that love. You have nothing to do because that love has no condition. So see, that's the only thing that needs to be accomplished in our practice. We need to develop an infinite humility so that we have the wherewithal to accept an infinite grace. That's it. Everything else is words. We'll stop there.